Now joining us is the walking, talking enshrinement of the Hall of Fame of the greatest league on earth. 1 week from today, players on NFL rosters will play football against each other on television. Yes. We've had a long offseason, and the first week of NFL football we get to see is not only a celebration that the next season has come, but a celebration of all the great things that have been. The Hall of Fame game 1 week from today, representing that all day, every day, ladies and gentlemen, David Baker. Yeah! How are
Pat,
you?
great to be with you, man. Great to hear all the good things you're doing, how good your show's doing. I apologize, I'm overdressed. I should have worn my tank top.
Well, listen, if you wore a tank top, I think people will be asking if you want to get back on the field. I got a chance to see you up close and personal, David Baker, whenever we had the Hall of Fame game, and then obviously there was the pain issue. You came into that locker room to tell us, like, hey, here at the Hall of Fame, we love the players, we look out for the players, that we're literally the only entity that is 100% for the players. It wouldn't be right for you two guys to go on the field and play tonight or whatever. It was very, very professional, very gentleman of you, and you were standing next to me while delivering that speech. And I remember going, well, can we get this guy out of the head of the Hall of Fame and get him on our goddamn offensive line? That's what I was thinking the entire time. Mr. Baker, you've done a hell of a job with the NFL Hall of Fame, sir.
Well, thank you, Pat. You know, that was kind of my worst day and my best day at the same time. And I've never really talked about this publicly, but when we canceled that game, it was frankly a painful decision, but it was an easy decision to make, because our first tenet here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame is to honor the heroes of the game. And if we can't keep you safe, we're not honoring you. And I don't know if you recall, but we had a whole lot of angry fields, fans. I'm sweating through my my suit out there. It's like 100 degrees. Have been on media. And what the coolest thing was, we were going to still have Aaron Rodgers was kind enough to talk to people. Oliver Luck talked to people. You guys lined up so that we could at least give the fans something. The fans booed me. I mean, they booed me. And they should have booed me because we weren't playing the game. But the coolest thing maybe to happen in my career was I looked back and all the players who had lined up, I don't know if you remember, but they were applauding the decision that was being made.
Yes.
And I had a son that played in the league for 8 years with Atlanta. He was not a punter or a kicker. He was a lineman, okay? Left tackle for Atlanta, Sam Baker. And I kind of finally got home that night at about 2 o'clock, and I'm still sweating. And I put my phone down, and I'll always remember it kind of buzzed because I got a text. And my son had flown home. He just landed at the airport and found out what happened. And he texted me, says, hey, Dad, he says, just landed. He says, I got 50 texts from NFL players who respect the heck out of what you did.
Yes.
And it is about you guys. It is about keeping everybody safe. So I'd like to think that was both my worst and best days in one day.
Well, I want to let you know, as a player, it was your best day, I think, because it was literally, I didn't know that was your decision, by the way. I thought other people were potentially making that decision, because I remember going out on the field, and I think at that point, Aaron was already down on the field. There was already groups of people having conversations around the field, and everybody was like, okay, now who's going to make this decision, because there were still people that wanted it to happen, obviously, because it's a big deal. But you stepping up for us, I think the players will never, ever forget it. We're very thankful for it. And the fans that booed in the moment, hindsight, look back and say, hey, good move. Let's talk about next week, though, Dave. Hey, we got a big week coming up. Where are you at right now? I know you're Zoom call in the Hall of Fame, but is the hay in the barn already? Do you have any more work before next week's big festivities, or what do we got to figure out?
We're going to have the first full stadium for football in 18 months.
Let's
go! It's going to be on Fox, the Cowboys and the Steelers. And then we've got the Gold Jacket dinner the next night. We got the 5th biggest parade in the United States in this little place called Canton. And then we've got the enshrinement for the Centennial class, which was going to be last year, 20 guys for 2020. And it's an incredible class of Hall of Famers, undoubtedly the best ever. And now we've got the class of 2021 that will be enshrined on Sunday night. And this is going to be special. I truly believe, Pat, that it's going to be one of the greatest gatherings in football ever.
I've heard about some of the parties that are being prepared. I'm not sure if you get any heads up on those beforehand, but Jim Irsay actually said, brother, do whatever. He said they're asking me for DJs, they're asking me for this, and Jim Irsay's like, for Peyton and Edge, do whatever the hell you want. Do you know about the festivities that are happening afterwards? Do they have to run that by you, or is that all kind of private? You do whatever you got to do?
Well, those are private parties, but we have the other stuff. It all coordinates together, certainly with the Canton Police, the Sheriff's Department, the NFL Security, and the FBI. But it's a good time. I mean, it really is, I'll tell you, a cool event. I always felt that the best Super Bowls were at those small cities, like Indianapolis. That was a super cool Super Bowl because the game was almost bigger than the city, and it merged together. That's what happens in Canton. And we've got Paul Tagliabue being enshrined, who was a commissioner for a long time. So all the people that built the league are coming to this. It's going to be a really special time. I'd love to have you here. If you want to, you can stay at my house.
Wow.
Whoa, David.
Wow.
Hey, the head of the Hall of Fame's house in Canton, Ohio is probably pretty nice.
Yeah, don't get many
Probably pretty nice.
chances.
If I had to guess, all the hard work he's done, he had to. I mean, this guy's made a lot of big time decisions, and his house is probably big. All right, I think I got to. All right, I think I have. That's something I have to do. Have a sleepover at David Baker's house. I think I have to do that. I will follow up with you on that. But let's talk about your job, because we said this as we led in here, but it's real. You are the walking, talking, basic depiction of the Hall of Fame of the greatest league on earth. Whenever you show up, everybody's like, oh, something. You're like Santa Claus for legends. When you show up at their house, some dream came true. And for NFL fans, when we say it's like, oh, something's happening with a legend here, something's going on. Is that a lot of pressure? Do you understand that, or do you not view it that way at all?
Listen, I think it's the greatest job in the world, and I take it very seriously. I mean, when I go to Burger King, when I pick up my food at the window, at the drive-thru, the lady goes, am I going into the Hall of Fame? It's kind of like being Ed McMahon in some respect, the old publishing clearinghouse. But I do think, we take it real seriously. When I go knock on the door, I've done it about 80 times now, and, for Peyton Manning or for Edge. And, these guys, they're not thinking how much money they're going to make. They're thinking about their mom that drove them to practice, or they're thinking about a dad that believed in him and wouldn't let him quit, or a coach, or teammates like you that helped them get there. And it's almost like you can see their entire career flash before them. And all I do is I tell them they're going to Canton. I thank them for all they've done and are going to do for the game. And then lastly, I say that we're going to guard their legacy forever here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That bronze bust will last for 40,000 years here. And by the way, I want you to know this, Pat. It's not just the Hall of Famers that we guard their legacy here. You, having played in the league for 8 years, have an archive here. And when you come here and stay at my house, I want you to come to the Hall of Fame. We'll pull your archive, and you'll see what we got. And you can add to that archive so that 1,000 years from now, your descendants can come here and look at this and say, this is what it is. And I truly believe, I know you have a lot of fun with it, and we're kind of the guardians of the history of the game. But I'll tell you, people don't understand that we all think that Peyton Manning or Troy Polamalu or Pat McAfee, that you fell out of bed great, and not one of them did. Not one of them did. They had to battle, they had to fight, they had to go through injury, they had to, and the values that you relied on, the commitment, that time when you felt like you were bigger than your own self because you were part of a team and a part of a group. We've seen that come into play with soldiers and police officers and fire officers and teachers and moms and dads. And I really believe that those values, it's kind of this ecumenical church of football. It is bigger than just the entertainment of the game. And the entertainment of the game is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But our job is to give you, we have a thing, the good people of Canton, Canton's done more. The NFL has done a lot of good for a lot of cities. But no city in the world has done more for the NFL than Canton, Ohio, where the game began in 1920. And by the way, that was in the aftermath of the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918 and 1919. Now, 101 years later, we're starting again. But they raised $12 million, Pat. And what they're doing, what they've done is build this park, a 2-acre park called Centennial Plaza. And in that park, there's these pylons for every decade. And we have the name of 25,474 players who played in the first century of the NFL, including Pat McAfee.
Well, wait a minute, David. So I'm in there twice. I'm in Centennial Park, and I'm in the building.
You got an archive, and then you got a place downtown. Okay.
Okay, and your house.
And my house. Okay. I want you to use the wastebasket for the beer can. It's hard for a kicker sometimes because sometimes it's wide right.
Yeah, well, the punt too could be a problem. But the David Baker, the by the way, very cool how serious. And I think that is why the Hall of Fame is held in such high regard. And I think the fans love it. I mean, anytime a player retires who played for a long time, if somebody says, hey, this guy, the immediate speculation is he a Hall of Famer or not, which is the ultimate goal, ultimate dream for a lot of guys. And then fans who hold the Hall of Fame in such high regard come in, they're like, no, it's not the Hall of Good. This is the Hall of Fame. You got to earn it. So I wanted to ask you, and it sounds like you already answered that question. You might already know what I'm going to ask you. The archive thing, I view the Hall of Fame, and you do as well, 40,000, as like a celebration of the game. For some of these players who maybe will not get in or whatever, is there a place for them aside from the archive? Like, for instance, Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
17 years starting quarterback in the NFL. That is mind-boggling. You ask any player, I think they'd be like, that's a Hall of Famer. If a guy starts for that long and has won that much, and everybody goes, oh, he didn't win a Super Bowl. And then Julian Edelman, well, he had all those accolades in the Super Bowls and stuff, but he didn't have the regular season yards. It's like that's a conflict. That's huge on who gets in and who doesn't get in, especially with how important that place is. Is that something you have to think about? And is that why the archive and everything is kind of developed? And will you continue to do such a thing?
Pat, we work on this all year round. I mean, the minute this enshrinement over, we will start working on next year. And that's not only players, it's coaches and contributors. It's seniors, and there's a senior committee. But let me tell you, there have been 330 million young men, and now women, by the way, that have played this game. There's only 5 million that played it in college like you did at West Virginia.
Oh, my God.
There's only 29,000 who've ever been paid to play it, coach it, or officiate it, or administer it in the National Football League. And today, here at the Hall, we have only 335 bronze busts. So it's an extreme level of eliteness. It's respectfully, it is not the Hall of really, really good. It's the Hall of Fame. But I will tell you that I truly believe that every guy who plays in the NFL, even for a week, is a hero in his community. And he's a hero to some other heroes, like those police officers or soldiers. At this year's enshrinement, we'll have 3 recipients of the Congressional Medal of Honor. And when I introduce them, Pat, I guarantee you, it will be with our Hall of Famers there. Every Hall of Famer will be on their feet.
Yeah.
But you know what? The only thing they'll want to do is meet the Dallas Cowboys or the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah.
They get inspired by that. But that's why we have this personal player legacy archive. And there's guys like, you probably know Bart Oates, who's the president of the NFL alumni.
Okay.
Bart's an incredible guy, played center, has 5 championships with 3 teams in 2 different leagues. That's a pretty good record. But he's not in the Hall of Fame. But when we pulled his archive and put it out there, man, he's grabbing his camera. He wants to take pictures of it. He had tears in his eyes. And again, I want you to know, real seriously, not having fun or anything like that. I want to have fun with you, but we can do that when you come to the house. Real seriously. Okay. What you did in building this league, you play a role in that. You worked at that, and so did the guys you played with. And they've inspired other people. And our job is to honor your legacy, every guy that plays. So if you play in a week in the National Football League, you have an archive here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And if you played in the first century, your name is inscribed forever down at Centennial Plaza.
Hey, that's a lot of pressure on you, David Baker, okay? Because there's a lot of people that played 1 week in the NFL. Now, listen, it is the elite of the elite, but that's a lot of pressure. And I want to let you know, when I come check out that archive, I will probably have some, I'll probably get a bit emotional watching it. I'm sure my dad would lose his mind for it. It's very cool that you think about those type of people. And thankfully, you guys finally put it, and Ray Guy and I have our own differences because of his award that he gave out to the wrong person my senior year. But thankfully, you guys put a punter in there, too. Let's go ahead and let's get that thing going. The punter's full, you know what I mean? That's a big deal.
We got a punter. We got a couple kickers, Jan Stenerud, Morton Anderson. And when we did Morton Anderson, I told him I would represent his gold jacket, his bronze bust, and his ring in Denmark. where he left as a 10th grade exchange student to come over here. He goes back 40 years as the all-time leading scorer at that time of the NFL. And I got to tell you, Pat, it was just as cool there as it was here.
Yeah.
Every camera in Denmark was there. Every adult within 30 miles was there. And I didn't understand what was being said, but when you're giving them the gold jacket or, presenting the bronze bust, I mean, guys are crying, and it's important. But again, I think that's what the game does. The game is, I get in trouble for this sometimes because I have great respect for our teachers, but I've never gone back to my chemistry teacher or my calculus teacher when I needed some advice in life. I went back to a coach. And that coach, while that education was important, that coach teaches you how to get up when you get knocked down, and how to go on when you don't think you can go on, or how to keep your marriage together or survive the divorce. And I think that's a lot of what, if you get beyond the money in the NFL, and I understand it's a business, you get beyond the money, that's what it really is.
Yeah, football.
It's a team, it's your coach, it's becoming more than you are. And, so I'd love to show you your archive. We probably should edit it sometime. Because we may want to censor a few things.
I understand, and I appreciate that. And thank you for all that you've done for the game and the sport and the league. I'm excited to see that thing continue to grow. Go ahead, Ty.
David, you talked about this being a dream job, which I assume it is. How did you get this position? Were you selected or appointed? Because I know you were in politics, in California before you did this. How did this come about? How did you even get this opportunity?
Yeah, listen, I was commissioner of the Arena Football League when it was flying high for about 12 years. One of the guys I would meet with regularly, my contact at the NFL was Commissioner Goodell. The board of directors here, and understand too, this is an important thing. The Pro Football Hall of Fame is a not-for-profit institution. It has a separate board of directors. We get about 3% of our money from the NFL. We make it from the tickets we sell for these events. We make it from philanthropists. We have partners that sponsor what we do. But they did a national search, and the commissioner actually bet that I would never come, one of the chairman at the time. And frankly, I will tell you something. It was kind of interesting because I was traveling to see my son at Atlanta at the time when he played with the Falcons. And when they offered me the position, I respectfully turned it down. I thought it was a wonderful thing, but I was doing something else that I thought was bigger at the time. And I at the end of the day, I sent the job description to my wife, and I said, hey, you'll never guess what happened today. And then I erased it. She called me back about 15 minutes later. She said, hey, we're going to go do this. And we're from Newport Beach, Irvine, California. And I said, well, sweetheart, in my most condescending term, I've already turned it down. She said, you can call him back. And I said, well, sweetheart, we got this big project we're working on. She said, yeah, but you got partners that can take that over. And I said, sweetheart, I don't know if you know this, but it's cold in Ohio. It's cold as you've ever been in your life. And to her great credit, she said, have you read this thing? And I said, no, I hadn't even read it. She said, you better read this because this is what you believe. And, my mom and dad were really good, hardworking people. My dad worked in a lumberyard. My mom, her only gift was keeping other kids. They couldn't read or write. And if it wasn't for sports, I wouldn't have gone to college. I wouldn't have had a chance to travel around the world and do things and frankly, be with guys like you. And so to me, I really do think that sometimes sports gets a bad reputation in colleges and education, but I think there's a lot of values there. And you know what? My wife was right.
Yeah.
It's been a great job.
I'd say, and you've done a hell of a job. And shout out to your wife, by the way. Big shout out to Mrs. Baker for forcing David Baker into doing this job that you have done fantastically. I think that's one you regret forever, huh? You don't do it? Probably.
Well, it's a great job. Again, I think somebody else will do it better than me when that time comes.
Oh, come on. No way. Hey, guys, stop.
They're probably not going to be 400 pounds.
Hey, maybe. I don't know. Offensive linemen got big brains, dude. Go ahead, Connor.
Yeah, Mr. Baker, for the guys like Adam Vinatieri, Bill Belichick, who were still in the league or still are, but they're going to be in the Hall of Fame, do you start making their bust just because you're anticipating, all right, these guys will be in here someday?
Yeah, you know what? I tell you, we have a 5-year waiting limit. And I think it's really important for that 5-year waiting limit to take place because frankly, it's hard for guys to leave the NFL. And I saw that in my son and Pat, I'm sure you experienced it. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's a different world. And when you leave it, all of a sudden you're gone. And I think guys need to let their legacy and their career settle. Because again, Peyton Manning took 10 seconds to be selected. I mean,
yeah, what took so long?
Mike Chappell took the microphone. I called on him for the presentation. And he said, Peyton Manning, and he dropped the mic. And that was it.
Shut up.
But his wife, Ashley, helped us with the knock on the door. We went to Mile High Stadium, and I don't know if you saw it, but his youth coaches were on the jumbo screen. His high school coaches were on the jumbo screen. His college coaches from Tennessee, his NFL coaches were all there. And when I told him he was in the Hall of Fame, respectfully, it wasn't this polished marketing NFL veteran that's 45 years old. At that moment, the guy I was talking to was 8 years old or 10 years old that started that journey. And he remembers all the shoulders of the guys he's standing upon. And I've seen it over and over and over again. So it's a special moment, but again, I think it's it may be different. You may not have a bronze bust, Pat, or a gold jacket
one day,
but I think a lot of guys in this game, it's an elite level of excellence to have made it that far, and I think by keeping their legacy alive, we're doing a lot for the kids in the future.
I think so too. And with the bus conversation, on when you start making them, somebody had Dion's? No, Dion's was, somebody had.
Oh, someone's was.
Dion had there was one that was not fantastic. And normally the artist is unbelievable. How is that process one that it is long, strenuous? Is that easy? Is that the hardest part of that thing? Because what you said, that bus is staying for 40,000 years or something. Like, that's a long, long time. I mean, let's hope. We don't know what's going on. I mean, me and David Baker are not the right people to get in that conversation. But, I mean, the bus, that's a big deal. And then when those things get debuted, I think there was only one that I do recall where everybody was like, what the hell? That doesn't look like him at all. Aside from that, is that process the most strenuous and longest part of this whole thing?
Well, it's one of many. We have 4 icons that we give guys. One is the bronze bust, and that is done by a gentleman named Blair Buswell, who is a nationally renowned artist, and he has a team of people in Utah. And we start the day after the Super Bowl when we kind of reveal these guys to the nation on the Honor Show, and it takes 8 months to get this thing ready. And they see it for the first time when they unveil it, like in this next week. They'll see it for the first time. But we also have the gold jacket that is done by Hager, that is presented on Friday night, and they walk the gauntlet of all the Hall of Famers. And I remember when Kurt Warner was up there, and Kurt's a guy I knew in the Arena Football League, so he got up as he's about to walk through the gauntlet, and he says, "Oh my God, these are all my heroes." And you walk that gauntlet to get your gold jacket. John Stallworth said that when he put on the gold jacket, it was like him wrapping himself in the history of the league from the first time they laced up a pigskin to the presentation of the last Lombardi. And then we give the Ring of Excellence, which is given in the fall in their stadium. It actually has their bronze bust on the side of the ring, so it can't be made until after the bronze bust is done. And then we give one more when they die. And I'll tell you, the biggest surprise to me is how many funerals I've been called on to speak at. I mean, good Lord, I did Chuck Bednarik's funeral or Bart Starr's funeral. Who would have ever thought that you'd be in that situation? But we present them with a medallion, and it's called the Memorial Medallion. And it just says, Pro Football Hall of Fame, Canton, Ohio, forever.
Oh.
And that's why we take that. It's serious. Let me just share one other. You mentioned Bill Belichick.
Go ahead.
When Bill was here, he was here for Ty Law's enshrinement. And I told him I was thinking about putting him on the Blue Ribbon Committee for the guys that were going to pick the Centennial enshrinees. And he's a great respecter of history. And I said, but the problem is, Bill, it's going to be in January, and I think you're going to be busy in the playoffs. And he says, no. He says, really? He says, put me on it. Please put me on it. I promise I'll make the time. Now, he kind of lost in the second week, but he was in 30 hours of phone calls when we had the final selection day, he came a day early to go through our archives to look at the old guys like Duke Slater and Max Speedy and all that stuff. At the end of the time, when Ernst & Young are counting the votes and getting ready to give me the envelope, he stands up and he says, "Hey, I just don't want all of you to know," and this is our distinguished selection committee, really impressive people. He says, "To be here in this place for this duty on this day," he says, "this has been just the best day of my life."
Wow.
And this is a guy who has 8 rings already. And so there's a lot of people who care about the game. And when you do come here, Pat, we can show you how the tight end got started and, who did the first shotgun and all the history of the game. I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I'll absolutely love it. And I bet Sirius Hour 2 3 will be on the other side of the 6-minute break. We're still live on YouTube. The thought of Bill Belichick wanting to do that while also doing football, he was probably trying to find plays in there. He was like, "Oh, this is giving me a reason to go back and find some damn plays." And then they started running that super power with Cam. It's like, oh, he was watching film of the Centennial team, this guy. David, we can't thank you enough for your time. Good luck next week. It's going to be a massive week. I will reach out about sleeping at your house for sure.
Yeah, make sure it's when I'm home. I don't want you there with my wife alone. Okay.
Hey, I promise I'm an honorable man, but I understand what this sentiment. Ladies and gentlemen, David Baker.
Good luck. That's all you do for the game.